Yes, I am mold. Okay. Cool. All right. So it looks like we're recording, and yeah. So I think what we're gonna do here is we're gonna just kind of jump into the questions the way that I have it structured. I have 5 questions. Um, I will, they're kind of meant to be viewed more as prompts rather than necessarily like direct yes no questions. I'm gonna try to time box each one to 10 minutes and just ask it out to the group, and you all can sort of whatever feels right in terms of how you want to engage with the question. If you want to engage with each other, kind of round robin it yourselves. I've seen the first couple of panels, and I think some groups were more back and forth engaging, some were a bit more round robin, and I just want you guys all to do what feels right. So yeah, if that sounds all right, we'll just get right into it.
Sounds good.
All right. First question here is, what should Echelon's marketing objectives look like? Who are the target audiences for Echelon, and what kind of message should we be sending to each one of those audiences?
As the non-marketing guy, I'm happy to start and give the others some jumping off points. Um, so my answer is that there's a number of audiences that Echelon needs to target. Obviously, we want to target trading card gamers. That one's easy. We want to target crypto natives who are interested in high quality blockchain games. That one's easy. But for actual adoption, which is needed to support the Prime token ecosystem, as well as like a liquid trading market for the cards themselves, we need the average gamer, the average like Web 2 gamer that's potentially interested in the concept of owning their own assets. So each of these groups needs to be marketed to differently. The Web3 GameFi interested audience, they don't need to be sold on the concept of owning their own assets. They're here because they're already fans of owning their own assets. They understand the power of it. What they most likely need to be sold on is the fact that trading card games are fun, which is, the trading card game, niche is small in the sum total of the gaming population. So, that's where we need to reach them, that we have a powerful and interesting space-based lore. The characters are interesting. We have some backstory with the comics, and that's being spun out as well, right? And then this all the blockchain gaming, the idea of NFTs as gaming assets, and who generally hate us. We need to win them over with the quality of the game and the fact that our game, well, not our game, but Parallel, can be played completely free to play and completely without NFTs, without any reduction in the level of competition, so that somebody who maybe doesn't have any money or much money, doesn't want to spend their money on the game in this way, if they're skilled and intelligent and willing to put in the time and effort, they can compete and be in the top bracket, the same as the high spenders. And for everyone else, we just need to, I think, they're sort of captured by the lore as well. We want to create a universe that is interesting and engaging. And I don't want to take up all the time, so I will hand it off here to the rest of you guys.
Well, I'd like to jump in because I mean this is a big part of my platform. So, and I think all those audiences that you just spoke to, Seth, are totally relevant. I would argue that for the context of the next term, the two most important audiences and the two that we should be marketing to would be the Web2 gamers, traditional gamers, and then also to game studios, right? And I'm going to take both those separately. So on the topic of traditional gamers, The whole reason, I'm sitting here looking at you guys right now, and the whole reason that I did my Wow Such origin story and ultimately dox myself is because I think the game's going to sell itself. Okay, I don't worry that the traditional gamers need to learn about the game. They're going to see the game. They're going to, if they're TCG native, they're gonna realize what hit is on their hands, and at some point during that experience, they're going to be presented with a decision point where they can go down the rabbit hole of, or they could stay with glints and they can stay with the whole, not having to go own an NFT route. But they're gonna, that decision point where they look at NFTs in Prime, is going to point them to us. At that point, we need to be ready, willing, and able transparently, to answer their questions, to be able to jump onto Twitch streams and talk with, someone like Allie who has a huge audience, right? And so that's kind of how I, leveraged this whole, or laid out my whole platform in a lot of ways. Like that's one of my main, things that I think that I can bring to the table. But conversely, we do need to explore growing our game catalog. And, I am of the firm belief that we need to make sure that the game that we do have in our stable, that ecosystem and economy is dialed in, before we go and court other games. But we can be doing that in parallel, up towards game launch, right? But so, when we talk about who should we be marketing to, well, we should be marketing to game studios, to people that have ideas for games. And that's why I laid out my concept of the Prime Combinator marketing campaign. And it's not that I want us to be an incubator so much as I want to leverage the prestige of the Y Combinator program. Because when people think Y Combinator, they think, oh my gosh, these companies, they apply to get into this program, and there's like all this hard work and effort, and there's ultimately this reward of launching something, or getting capital to help launch something. And I think we can leverage that prestige and come up or roll out a marketing plan like I've laid out in my Medium articles about this, called the Prime Combinator, which is to educate what we do, inform what the game studios and the games, what we're looking for as far as like syncs and what we can help them with. We are the scaffolding upon which they can deploy Web3, aspects of their games that maybe that they're not familiar with. They're not crypto native, but they can make a fucking good game. So that's who I think we should be marketing to. And then the third fold of that campaign is a call to action, which is to bring them back to us, to get them to reach out to us, right? I don't think that we should be chasing down, like a funnel, a deal flow of what's out there right now. I mean, I don't think we should be marketing to these guys, hey, like going to them. I think they should be coming to us. The only way that they can do that, or we can look them in the eye and do that, is if the game's launched and our ecosystem is sound. Because if we are selling ourselves before we've proven the model, then, it's maybe we can, maybe we can't. I don't know. That's my thoughts. I'll hand the torch.
You can go ahead if you want. Sarge?
If you're speaking, Sergeant, we can't hear you.
I can go then. So marketing is still something I'm actually still thinking about. My general idea is that we should attract traditional Web2 gamers first, and then use that community base to attract game studios by offering an already built player base as an additional perk of joining Echelon. But I'm still not entirely sure if this is the right path. Like, it would be something that I think needs further discussion and data, and possibly like evaluating all the options. But it's this is my general framework. I think this would be the way I would approach it. I think.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yep, can hear you.
Sorry about that. So I only heard part of what you said, Warwick, because I was
Yeah, I can sum it up if you want.
Yeah, sure.
So my idea regarding marketing is to attract first the traditional Web2 gamers, build a community base, and then use that base to advertise to the game studios.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. Yep. I agree with. I do agree with a lot of those points. I think to me, part of this question is about what is primarily, what should kind of Echelon focus on versus the studio parallel. And I do think kind of at a high level, I think probably like going after new gamers. Echelon should support as much as we can, and where the studio kind of thinks we might fit in best. But to me, that may fit better in Parallel's camp. I think what's really key for us on that side is the incentive structure around the play to earn and the sinks, and then also kind of again on the gamer side, sort of partnerships on the more crypto side, whether it's marketplaces or other games. Anyway, so that's kind of how I guess that's sort of the sort of nuance I would add. Is just that I think when we think about this, we should really think of sort of what our sweet spot is versus the studio.
Yeah, and can I just piggyback on that?
I would say give it I'll give you 60 seconds, but after we'll move to the next question, and I will just say a lot of these questions are all going to tie into a common theme.
Okay, but I just want to clarify, what Sargent said there is very important. Is that this delineation between, Parallel is going to have their own PR marketing team ramping up, and they're going to be talking a lot about the game. But where I think that we can provide value, and where I think that I can provide value, is talking specifically about the Web3 aspects, talking specifically about Prime, right? When they reach that decision point to either continue with Glints and continue with the traditional Web2 experience that Parallel will provide, they also can make the choice to come and learn about the crypto stuff and like all the Web3 aspects. And that's the point in which that we would engage to help them, like over that bridge. Not so much like how do I play Freedis or like the game theory behind all those, the actual game, but explaining and transparently being out there talking about the token, talking about the sinks, talking about all those deep, rich Web3 things. So that it's what you brought up is great. I think that they should have their own, and they do their own marketing stuff. But when it comes to the Web3 Prime Echelon ecosystem, we need to be able to have people that can speak to it as well.
Excellent. All right, so we're going to move on to the next question, which again, I think a lot of these, like all these questions are going to tie in. So I think, if you have other thoughts, I believe you'll be able to bring them into the rest of the questions throughout the night. We did speak a lot in that last question or those last answers about kind of, Web2 gamers. I'd like to focus on the Web2 gamers for the next segment here. So aside from the sentiment, which as Sath pointed out, they hate us. What are the biggest challenges that a Web2 gamer faces when getting into a Web3 game? Now, we know that most of the games out right now are terrible, so let's just assume for the sake of this discussion that there are a handful of actually fun Web3 games. What are the biggest hurdles that kind of a normal traditional Web2 gamer faces in terms of getting into Web3 gaming, and how is Echelon uniquely positioned to help address some of these challenges?
I mean, I'll take it if nobody's jumping in. I think the one thing that we can do is around education, and these folks have been shitting on us for as long as I can remember. It just most recently that Ninja, post in the cryptocurrency subreddit on Reddit, they shit all over us, right? And so like once they come to that decision point and they decide, okay, I do want to investigate what Prime is all about, we're going to have to handhold them through a lot of the things that to us we learned, 4 or 5, however many years ago, like having a wallet. But I think what we can do is draw parallels to stuff that already exists, pun intended. Like CSG, the skins. Skins have an economy that is gigantic, and traditional gamers know about that. But they also know that it's highly centralized, and it's do you really own those skins, right? So like we can do a compare and contrast on how you own your cards in the NFT sense, the Web3 sense, and that you don't truly own your skins in the Web2 sense. So I think there's an opportunity to to strongly educate, but do so through analogies and things that they can understand, that they're familiar with.
I think WoW hit one of the biggest things that I was going to say as well, and we should all think of, which is that using MetaMask is something we all take for granted, and we all had to learn at one point. Right? And there's a number of other concepts here that we all take for granted, such as security, not like so informational security, operational security, keeping yourself from getting scammed. Knowing how to transact currency once like you have a wallet, knowing what is safe and what is slippage, all that. Now that's deep in the weeds, but it doesn't need to be if there's a corner of Echelon Foundation or Echelon that is educational content, or Echelon sponsors a content creation platform that can host educational content for Web2 users that have never come through this before. Tutorials, videos, articles. I think all these things are necessary. But on top of that, I think there is the equipment and technology aspect that might be difficult here. A console-only gamer who maybe has a phone or a tablet is going to have a high barrier of entry to the Web3 ecosystem. I'm happy to say this. I advocate strongly against using crypto on your phone. I think it's very much not safe. So I would hesitate to say you're a console only gamer, do all the crypto stuff on your phone. Keep your entire net worth of crypto on a poorly secured app on a phone that anybody can steal. So knowing how to go from a console to a cheap laptop, or an emulator on a tablet or something, is something that we could help educate the average Web2 gamer on. And I'll leave it there.
Yeah, so I think I think the way I see it, I think a lot of the challenges that I think there's two challenges. One is it's sort of really complicated. I think I think we're all relatively crypto native at this point, but it was it's a relatively long journey to get there. And I think we all probably have friends that don't know the first thing about what it even means to sort of have a wallet, for example. So I think on that front, one of the great I think the fact that Parallel is creating basically a way to play the game that is totally outside of NFTs and Prime is great. And our close partnership with them, I think we can sort of design exactly the sort of onboarding funnel that we want, that we think is best to sort of get people to move from that game to becoming an active Web3 gamer. So I think that complication and sort of the opportunity with Parallel is great. I think the second is just what's the point, right? So I think what are the benefits of kind of Web3 gaming? I think they're pretty obvious to us, but I think for somebody that is just used to a regular game experience, it's not obvious to them. But so I think the benefits are, one, the sort of potential earning model, and two, the digital ownership of assets. And I think on the potential earning, I think one thing we could do is say, have on the Parallel, the non-NFT side, say, oh, you would have earned this much Prime had you been playing with NFTs, for example. And I think on the digital ownership side too, I think there's probably different ways that we could help people see the benefit of that. I think that'll come somewhat naturally to certain gamers, maybe ones that are already playing TCGs or ones that already collect CS skins. But there's probably a lot more we can do there to sort of show the benefits to a wider audience also.
So I would echo what has been said, and I could summarize it in 4 points. I think the first one is the technological barrier. Web 2 people, they don't really understand crypto. It's still very technological heavy. It's not easy. There's like the UI is not easy. The UX is not easy to understand. It's not normie friendly, let's say. I think the second point would be there's a bad sentiment around NFTs and crypto in general. And that's normal in the sense that there's been a lot of uncertainty and because this is such a new space, and with all the stories that have spun from this space, so that's kind of a normal thing, especially because of the lack of education amongst those gamers, and that's why this sentiment also perpetrates. The third point would be the lack of fun and good games, which I think it's pretty clear, and we all agree on that point. And also the final point, I think it's still this space, and specifically Web3, it's still very new. I think there hasn't been time enough to really get people exposed to Web3 games. And the way I think Echelon could tackle this, from the technological barrier standpoint, I'm not sure exactly yet if there's something being done, like specifically towards like UX or UI or like other stuff regarding interaction with blockchain or the NFT side. Regarding the bad sentiment, I would say it is important to educate people and to show them the benefits of it, and this is not like all a scam. The good game, I think Parallel is going to be probably one of the first ones to bring out a good game. And those are my thoughts.
All right. I mean, I think we have another 2 minutes. If we'll have anything to add.
I guess I'd like to say something as well. So I have this uncle that, like I've been in crypto for over a decade. And so like I've been telling, different family members about it for a long time. And to his credit, he's been very engaged for like the last 8 years, but also very dismissive. And he just, he understood a lot he read the white paper and he's like, okay, I get it. He kind of built a little bit of a better mousetrap here. But he's like, for this to really take off, you need a killer app. You need something that's going to engage with not just crypto native people, but crypto native people's grandparents, right? It needs to get easier. And right now, I would still argue that, if you look at my daughter, she's going to grow up in a completely crypto native world. It's going to decentralized things are going to make sense to her. Right now, my father, he doesn't understand any of this at all, right? And so like our job is to help bridge these two, user bases, right? Because we're leading the pack. We're crypto native at our hearts, right? And so, the idea and the concept that there hasn't been a killer app that's just been easy to use, I would argue that Parallel is that Trojan horse. It has the potential to, ride right up to the traditional gamers and say, hey, we got this great TCG. You don't need to dive into the Web3 aspects, but if you want to, they're there. They're deep. They're rich, right? And so when they make the choice to investigate all that, I think that we should be there. And I think Seth brings up a great point. For better or worse, I think for better probably, the fact that we're not releasing on mobile first is probably a great thing, right? Because at that point, the only way that they're going to be able to do it is download a client onto their desktop, onto a laptop, and do it there. Well, those are the places that we can at least get them to run a MetaMask, right? We can talk about getting into, like hardware wallets and everything, but if we had come out on mobile first and we're asking people to load up a MetaMask on their phone, like that's danger, 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 red flag everywhere, right? Like I'm super security minded. So what Seth said hit home, for real deep. But the fact that we can, or that we will, the Parallel will be launching on desktop first, will allow us to help them navigate some of those, basic to us security minded concepts early on.
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah, I think one of the just to add to what I was saying, I think one of the decisions that we'll have to make, but we'll probably have to keep revisiting is just how much to abstract away some of the sort of crypto native experience from the folks that we want to convince to try Web3 gaming. I think today there isn't really a great sort of alternative to like a seed phrase, for example. But I know there are folks working on different ways of kind of making self-custody sort of safer from a kind of user error perspective. And so we'll have to be sort of, I think ideally we'll be at the forefront of kind of those sorts of user-friendly, adoption of sort of user-friendly Web3 technologies, and maybe we'll even create some. Like I thought the vault was a pretty great idea. I guess it didn't work kind of long term for a lot of reasons, but sort of that kind of concept of abstracting something a little bit away from the user, I think is a big advantage for an opportunity for Echelon.
Excellent. All right, guys. So let's pivot away from the user and towards kind of the other group that you rightfully identified, which is game developers. So there's many different types of game developers and game development studios. What kind of game developers do you think Echelon should be targeting? What kind of game developers do you think would find our offering compelling? Do you think there's a sort of difference between Web 2 and Web 3 game developers? Is one better to target over the other? Curious to get everyone's sort of thoughts on this sort of like segment of the sort of like Echelon marketing side.
I'll jump off with this. Yeah, so what kind of game developers should Echelon be targeting? I think Echelon should be targeting game developers who are game developers first. They're a team of story writers, of engineers. They have experience, with like the Unreal Engine, and they're there to make a game. They have a vision, a vision for their art, for their story, for their characters. And they want to do that well. And as a byproduct, or as an aside, to their interest in making a good game, they are curious about blockchain and how the technology can be used to enhance, their customers' experience, their users' experience, by owning assets, by enhancing the ownership experience, or I guess the achievement experience. You do something well in a game, and you receive an award that you own, that doesn't just exist on a server that can be wiped 5 years from now if the game doesn't succeed, right? So I think that's the primary developer type that we should be targeting. And so is there a difference between how we should target Web 2 and Web 3 developers? I think so. I'm going to make a bit of a sweeping generalization here and say that from what I have experienced of Web3 game developers and game studios, which I have a lot of experience. Young Capital gets a lot of pitches, multiple GameFi pitches a week. The most common theme that they have is that they're crypto people first. They care about their token. and they are trying to, ham fist a game into their token ecosystem. So, maybe they're not the best audience in general, but if you are talking about a Web3 native game studio, that is likely to be their focus, is, a tokenomic economy, and much less, well, maybe not much less, but less on the, the story character side. And so we'd want to help them there where possible. But it's basically the converse, the direct converse of what you'd be looking for with a Web2 studio. And personally, if you ask me my opinion of which is better, I would rather us partner with people who have a good vision, for a compelling story and for engaging gameplay. Something that you sit down and play 50, 60 hours or something, maybe you can come away and go, wow, I'll remember that, for the rest of my life. I'll be talking about this 10 years from now. And with that, I'll hand it over.
Yeah, the thing that has impressed me about Parallel TCG is that at every stage, when they had a decision point where, they chose a decision that was game first, they're building something that is the experience of that TCG is paramount when it comes to when they talk about it. And I think that a game studio should have any game studio that we partner with should have that mindset. That being said, I'm agnostic to what type of game. I don't, whether it's sci-fi or racing. To me it doesn't matter, right? Like, it matters that the experience is good and that they have thought out compelling syncs that they understand the ownership aspect of NFTs of Web3. And what I think is that as a crypto native person, like Seth said, there's all these projects that are token first, and game, is just like this thing that they tack on so that they can market to it, right? The problem with the people that make really awesome games is they're not crypto native. I don't think that they understand the nuances of the ownership aspect, and then also, like, why have a sync, right? Like, why can't we just keep shelling out tokens? And I think that's the point where we need to educate them. And I keep coming back to, we need to show what we have built here and why it's important that the game's launching with 10 plus syncs, right? And we need to educate them about the aspects of ownership in Web3 versus the centralized ownership of skins. And so, I keep coming back to educate, to marketing to these guys. And I think that it's important that we don't put the cart in front of the horse. I don't think that I think that we need to prove this model, that we need to have the game up and running, that we show that the emissions are balanced as it relates to how much syncs that we're pulling Prime back out of the market. And when we do that, we can put a pretty damn compelling marketing project together to go to the studios that are making compelling games, not the studios that are token for, or not the projects that are crypto native, token first. Hey, we're going to throw on, like this half-assed game. I keep coming back to that horse meme, where you have the front half of the horse is like this beautifully drawn out thing, and the second half looks like it's something that my 5-year-old daughter drew. So, I think that what we're talking about here is getting to the people that make great games and then informing them on why that this stuff matters. And I think that we can do that if we do a compelling marketing campaign. And I don't think we haven't seen one yet. So.
Yeah, I think I agree with I think how Seth kicked it off. I think what we're going to build, I think we're going to build ideally an audience and an expertise in crypto kind of execution and an economy that's very compelling. And I think between those three things, that'll be hopefully what drives game developers to want to work with us. I think what that means as far as where we're most likely to find success is probably in again, I think this is what Seth said, but it's probably in a more indie type developer that maybe has recently spun out of some other larger studio and really just wants a game, but doesn't know how they're going to market it, doesn't know how they're going to fund it, and is curious about, but doesn't feel like an expert in crypto. And I think that's really probably going to be our sweet spot. The only other thing that I think would maybe more of a long tail or kind of a long term opportunity is, I think what would make this a really, really compelling kind of Web3 gaming ecosystem is some of the art or NFT assets are potentially shared across games. And now that's something we'd have to get the studios to agree to, and we'd have to think about the conversation. But I think if we did have a game studio that really wanted to use some of the equipment that was spawned out of parallel NFTs and that 3D, the rigged art, I think that's sort of like an extra benefit that we can provide / value that a studio would see in us. So it's kind of a win-win in that sense.
Yeah, so when I think about attracting a game studio, I mostly think about like what type of game are they gonna do, and this is some food for thought, and I would like us to discuss it a bit. Like, do you guys think that like does the game have to be multiplayer necessarily, or can it be single player, like to integrate Prime token, for example, to have an economy? Or like, can, instead of just using the Prime token, can they use instead the equipments, for example, that Parallel might or not provide, and just integrate, for example, a helmet, a Markolian helmet of some sort in their game, and they don't even need to use Prime, right? So how do you guys approach this? Like, what type of integrations could a game have in Echelon?
So I think a purely single player, like Final Fantasy VII type, like RPG sort of thing, would be difficult to integrate, with the Prime economy. As you noted, like maybe like the equipment could be something that's brought in, but I don't think it has to be like massively multiplayer. I don't think it has to be fully competitive. Even if it just was a single player game that had like a co-op mode that was separate maybe from the story. Maybe you do. Let's take a JRPG as an example here. There's a story, a boss in the story. It's like level 70 or whatever, and there's an online co-op mode where you could fight like a nightmare version of the boss with other people who queued in the co-op system. And through that co-op battle, some of the drops could be, and the treasure could be NFTs or parallel equipment or something like that. It's not a hugely compelling case for the use of a currency, the Prime token, but I think it is for assets. I'll hand it off.
I mean, I would not rule anything out. I'm not a game developer, but I think what has been proven time and time again is that people come up with crazy and compelling things that we've never thought of before. And so just because we have a concept of what a single player game is, and like how we think that they could use equipment or what have you, there's some really intelligent people that are thinking that third, fourth level effects that I think that we're just beginning to see. We haven't even begun to see yet. And I wouldn't put it past anybody. So if someone come up with a compelling single player game that utilize I think it's possible. I don't know. I haven't seen any options or of as they exist today that it makes sense, but I wouldn't put it past the community at large. There's some really creative people out there.
Awesome.
Let me just add an example. Can I?
Yeah.
Like, imagine a single player that to buy the game, you buy it with Prime, for example, right? And then, for example, like I think it was Meta that mentioned this. You could issue Prime as a reward for like a speed running contest, for example, to play the single player, right? This is just some ideas.
That's a smart idea. Actually, I like that.
Awesome. All right, so we're gonna get into the last sort of like main segment of the night before the finishing segment, where everyone will get an opportunity to sort of recap who they are and what they're about. So we've discussed kind of like a lot of different angles here, and in the last section, economics has come up a bunch. We talk a lot about syncs within Parallel, but there's also sort of like the economy of NFTs. Right now with Parallel, it's the primary NFTs, but one of the key innovations that has come out of Parallel and that kind of like others in the industry seem to have aped a bit is replication. And by this, we mean like an NFT can function essentially as a factory, and this introduces all different levels of kind of supply and demand considerations into managing the supply of NFTs as the game ecosystem grows, and this obviously funnels back into prime syncs. What other kinds of models around managing the supply of NFTs or getting NFTs into the hands of gamers, and specifically new gamers, can you guys think of that could be interesting for Echelon to explore?
I'll jump off on that, but I think the documentation and the work done by the Parallel Economy team they've done a really great job balancing the supply of NFTs and how that's going to oscillate with the number of users and the basically the volume, the flow of Prime. So I'm not going to focus too much on that. I'm really interested in getting NFTs into the hands of the non-crypto natives, the players who are going to be free to play, and giving them a chance to earn rewards through skill rather than a sort of pay-to-play model. So I think one of the most obvious examples would be we have the ranked match system. In most games there's like a ranked and unranked sort of tourney mode, that sort of thing. If a player finishes high in a bracket for let's call it weekly, top 10, top 100, then they can be paid out in Prime, or they could earn an NFT. Now that NFT doesn't necessarily need to be a competitive card. It could be an art card style. It could be a card back. It could be something even just as simple as an NFT that gives access to a title. So when you challenge the person, basically says, like tourney champion, 2023, whatever. And, that is an ownership that they have. And it's a good way to break them into the concept of like, hey, wow, like I've received a tangible reward that I own, for my effort. And maybe I can't sell it. Maybe I don't want to sell it, but it has, clout is the word you would say as a gamer. It's clout. You get to flex on other people, right? But you can also have tournament rewards or ranking rewards that are, legendaries, SE editions or whatever. So people get their first NFTs just by being, skilled. And maybe over the course of a year, let's say if the payouts are weekly, you can assemble a full NFT deck. So, if you keep playing, you're earning rewards. So I think skill is a measure by which we should get free-to-play players, let's call them free-to-play players, introduced to the NFT world and the asset world. And I'll hand it off here.
Kirby, is the question more around like from a marketing perspective, or?
Yeah, I'll repeat again, because Warwick was asking. Yeah, I'm essentially like part of what Echelon does is work a lot on kind of what lies underneath. So there's infrastructure. One of the, I believe the white paper mentions suite of smart contracts. This is mentioned as well in the Git book, as well as the syncs. Like we provide these foundations, and part of this is also research and thinking about innovative new models on which you can sort of design game economies and provide developers tools and guidelines for interacting with an economy. Replication, I think, is one of these, right? Like this idea of the primary NFT being a factory to produce new NFTs and giving, the supply, the ability to create new supply to the actual gamers. And so I guess I'm asking people to sort of speculate or, discuss potential other interesting ways by which Echelon could research or, incentivize or support new studios in kind of releasing more NFTs to new people in a way that isn't replication, but, are there other ways? We're still so early in thinking about how the NFT economy fits into all of this and how that feeds back into the sync economy. Replication is one of the more interesting things that I've seen. I'm curious if there's sort of like other methods for this that could be interesting for Echelon to explore, research, and potentially promote. Does that make sense to everybody?
It does. And so, but I think I might have a little bit of a contrarian take here. So I was around, pre-Echelon being spun out, right? And when I first learned about Parallel, there was this concept of Prime, or the tokenomics of it. It was something that was fleshed out by the team, right? And when Echelon became a thing, some of the team members came onto Echelon and helped drive that vision. One of the things that I have said is that I view Echelon as being the scaffolding on which game studios can deploy their game, and then we can help implement their vision, right? I don't necessarily know that we need to be the ones providing the vision, okay? I don't know what interesting and amazing syncs that people are going to think up, and integrations that they're ways that they're going to be able to use equipment in single player games, kind of like Warwick was talking about, or like all these different integrations. I'm not sure that we should be the ones that are thinking about all those things. But when a studio approaches us and says, hey, I got this idea, then we're the ones that help build the smart contracts to make that integration happen. I mentioned this on a reaction video I think I did to one of the previous panels, is that like the idea that a game launches and it says powered by the Echelon Foundation, right? Like we helped implement their vision. So, I get your question, but like the vision of all this tokenomics was born well before the Echelon Foundation existed. Okay, it was split off and we're here now, right? But that original core concept came from the original founders. And so to the extent that another game comes along and says, hey, we got this great idea and we should be here to be like, hey, I got the tools to help make that happen. Let's go, right? So like, we can all throw out what ideas, but I'm not a tokenomics person. I'm not running on a tokenomics platform. I'm running on a marketing campaign platform. But, when I think about Echelon, I think that we're the foundation, the scaffolding on which these studios can build their games and implement their ideas. But I don't know that we need to bring the ideas to them. I mean, I may be completely off base here or misinterpreting your question, but I mean, that's my take. So.
No, that's a totally valid direction to go. I just want to clarify, like, there is no misinterpretation. Like, you're totally within your right to, take it however you want and give the answer that you see fit.
Yeah, I think one of the one of the things that we'll have to balance is the opportunity to potentially borrow NFTs. If you have an economy where people can borrow NFTs and replicate NFTs and acquire, primary NFTs or replicated NFTs, there's a lot of different ways to play with NFTs. I do think, I mean, as I just think about your question now, I think it is tough to think of another way to get NFTs into people's hands if you have replication happening. And I do think replication is probably the best thing we should try, but potentially, like if we weren't doing replication, maybe you could have something where, okay, if somebody without any NFTs plays somebody with NFTs and like wins, maybe they get a fraction of one of that player's cards as a fragment NFT, and maybe if they have 4 or 5 of those, so they've beaten someone with that card 4 or 5 times, they can sort of create a sort of NFT that has sort of a similar feature to what a replicated NFT would have been. Then you have a bit of a play to win NFTs also, and that could be another way to get more NFTs into people's hands. But I don't think we know yet how important it is for people to have NFTs kind of in their hands versus having a kind of easy UI and a way to play to earn, maybe without even owning NFTs in the first place via borrowing. So I think there's a lot of things to think about there.
Yeah, so I'll just say that tokenomics is not really my forte, and to think about something similar to the replication system in such a short amount of time is probably like very hard. And I don't know, maybe I was thinking like maybe using Prime as an in-game currency in a game, for example, in a single player, maybe it doesn't make much sense, but just using Prime as an in-game currency. I don't know if that makes sense, if that could possibly enhance the game somehow, or even the Prime token, but just a thought.
Yeah, I guess I'll add just maybe another question then to that maybe you can jump off on, Warwick. So yeah, something that Sargent said. Is it even important to get NFTs into the hands of people who don't have them?
If it is important, I think it depends on if it is a. So I think the NFT shouldn't be a necessary component of the game itself, like Parallel is approaching this. So in that sense, the answer is no, right? I don't think it's necessary to make them consume those NFTs.
I'll just jump on this and continue my missing the point here, and say I think it is important to get NFTs into the hands of people, but I'm gonna stay with the sort of the non-transferable NFTs, or NFTs that have no value. If people play Parallel or other IPs that Echelon manages, they spend their time, they put in effort. They should come away with something that they own, whether it's just, a pretty picture that signifies an achievement, or, a title that says you beat a boss or something. You put in the time. Why not have something tangible for it, even if it's just for yourself? And, if in the example of Parallel, they keep winning games, maybe they earn some renown, and maybe there's a system where, you can pay a certain amount of renown or Prime and have your special non-transferable NFT, your title NFT or your art NFT, printed up as a poster or as a physical, right? And then you have something tangible that represents, the effort and the skill they put in.
Yeah, but does it have to be an NFT?
It doesn't have to be, but if it's not an NFT, then do you really own it? Then it's on a server, and if 10 years from now, the IP shuts down and they wipe it, it's gone forever, right?
Right.
Whereas if it's an NFT, it's your asset.
I mean, the last time I checked, Echelon hasn't released, a collection of NFTs on OpenSea. We have assisted in realizing Parallel TCG's vision, which their vision was, an NFT economy where you own your cards, right? But does that mean that the next game studio that has a really smart idea that wants to implement Prime, that it has to revolve around NFTs? I don't necessarily know that we know the answer to that. To Work's point, think about the newest Zelda game that instead of in-game rupees they use Prime. Like I don't know that makes sense, right? But I'm also not discounting the fact that there's really creative people out there that could implement Prime into their game in ways that we haven't conceptualized yet. And so, do I think it's important that people get NFTs? Of course. I think that people should interact with this ecosystem in so many ways. NFTs are just the newest thing. master nodes and ICOs and shit coins. And I mean, I've seen all these different things pop up, and it's been so much fun. Do I necessarily know or think that NFTs have to be in every single person's portfolio? I mean, from the context of, do I want them to play parallel TCG? Yes, of course. But for them to be a member of the Echelon ecosystem, I don't think it has to be. Torty's Turtle Dash game might not have any NFTs, but it might have a very clever way of implementing Prime. I don't know the answer to that.
So I just thought of this is like different than replication, but I just thought of this idea because I even though I asked the question, I guess I do agree with Seth that there probably is some degree to which we do want people to have NFTs, and sort of once you have 5 NFTs, you're going to want to have 30 or 40, and that just helps the economy. You feel more ownership. You feel kind of maybe more affinity towards the game, and sort of want it to do better and sort of advocate. It probably is a good thing to own these NFTs. So one idea, it's not really related to replication. It's like, what if you win a game, you get Prime, but there was a button that said, hey, instead of 3 Prime, give me 3 payload cards. And so you immediately just convert that Prime into NFTs, and the Prime stays in the play to earn pool, and you get those NFTs in your wallet. You don't have to pay extra gas, sort of claim and spend, and maybe even get a discount. I think that would be sort of a cool, sort of just a simple UI to maybe it solve this. To help tackle this problem of sort of getting more NFTs into more wallets.
I like that idea.
Yeah, I like that. It's cool.
Right. Well, we're definitely pushing up on time here. Thank you, everyone, for bearing with me and hearing me with this string of questions. I want to give everybody up on the stage sort of 2 minutes to sort of just sign off, recap who you are, what you're about, and after that we can all sort of get on and enjoy the rest of our night or morning, depending on where you are in the world. I guess Wow, you are the first on my screen, so 2 minutes. Why don't you go?
All right, thanks, Pew. So I think it would be easy for me to sit here and say hey, vote for me because I'm a long-standing community member. I've been around since PD1, and I was the first one to build an Artograph Paraset, or become an NFT holder for Hung's collection thing that he gave out. But this isn't a popularity contest, and I'm not. I don't think you should vote for me because of that. I think you should vote for me because over the last few weeks, I think that I have proven that I'm putting in the time, and not to discount my fellow candidates here, but when they're putting out a 1-page PDF for their nomination, and I was out there scratching and learning, trying to figure out how to put out a Wow Such origin story video, which ultimately led to me doxing myself in support of trying to show you what I was basing my first pillar on. Furthermore, I was, wrote 4 Medium articles on different things that I felt that I could bring to the table, actionable items that didn't cross any legal boundaries, through, ideas for disseminating information better. I outlined my 3-fold marketing campaign for, the Prime Combinator. And so, I think you should vote for me because when you go to look at all these different candidates and what they bring to the table, I'm looking you in your eyes right now, and they're not. Okay. I think you should vote for me because I'm putting in the work and I'm the best person for the job, hands down. I appreciate your time, and stay Prime. Wow.
Thank you. Wow. Warwick, you are next on my screen. So 2 minutes, whenever.
All right. So first, I would like to invite people to read my vision for Echelon on my thread in the EP Candidates channel. There's also a detailed description of my objectives for this term. I believe it is vital in this term too to establish the Echelon brand by harnessing the launch of its first gaming title. So my intention is to create a detailed plan towards building a strong brand for Echelon bootstrap user onboarding, and set the foundation towards building a large community base. I am at a stage in my life where I'm only starting to build out a career in the crypto space for the past 2 years, doing it full time. And that gives me great motivation to really push myself and to try to accomplish greater things individually and collectively in all my ventures. I have a deep respect for the current team and what they have accomplished in Term 1, and I cannot wait to help them in this Term 2 steering Echelon towards its vision. Finally, I think given the high skill set and experience and expertise overlapping amongst some candidates, I think it is essential for Echelon to have a diverse array of skills and expertise, which is something that people should have in mind when voting. I think having a wide skill set will lead to more creative and effective solutions and ideas. I also believe this is an important step towards increasing quality and quantity of the foundation's output. So on March 15th, vote Warwick. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Warwick. Seth, you are next. 2 minutes,
Okay.
starting whenever you start.
Okay. So similar to work, I would invite people to read my CV and the Medium article that accompanies it that I have posted. It's in the governance, it's in the EP candidates channel. I think that says most of what you need to know about me. There's a couple of things that I guess I'd like to just expand on. One of them is the work that I have done with Parallel. I just want to make it clear because there seems to be some confusion here. I'm one of many consultants that have worked with the Parallel economics team. I've done testing. I've offered advice and insight. But no part of the Parallel ecosystem has been designed single-handedly by me and enacted single-handedly by me. I have no power to do so. And so if maybe you disagree with my ideas, don't worry, because everything has been a group discussion. And yeah, so I just want to get that out of the way. And I also want to address one other concern, which is that I am Yunt Capital. And I just want to address the fact that despite being Yunt Capital, despite being a seed investor and a Series A investor, I've been interested in Parallel long before we were even seed investors. But the fact that we are investors, my interests in Parallel and Echelon as the managing corporation for Parallel are perfectly aligned. You could say my interests are actually parallel. And I also want to make sure that everyone understands that we are not your typical VC like the ones that are out there, earning the ire of the public. We have never taken a single outside dollar to invest. Every dollar and every check that we've written has come from ourselves. We have our autonomy.
I gotta ask you to wrap it up. Sorry.
Okay. So I'll just say that we're each our own person. We're in basically a club together. We're a bunch of middle-aged guys that got together so we could afford to invest in things we felt strongly about. We're not evil. We're not shadowy. I'll leave it at that.
All right. Thank you, Seth. And Sarge, last but certainly not least. 2 minutes whenever you're ready.
All right, so thank you, thank you, all the candidates. So to sum it up, my vision for Prime is to be the utility token for multiple game studios. I think next year is going to be super exciting. Games growing, we're becoming more independent. There's a few things we need to build. We are launching and refining the syncs. We're going to have a proof of concept for games 2 to 10 or 20. We're probably going to need to invest in 1 or 2 technology projects to strengthen our offering and provide more value to our potential partners and also to the foundation itself. I think I'm a candidate that's knowledgeable and contributing in a lot of different ways, from finance to marketing to tokenomics to game partnerships. And I'm excited and honored to be able to contribute even more in the next year if I'm reelected.
All right. I think that is that. So Cold Plunge, I see you there in the chat. I think we can stop recording. When you do hit stop, just let me know so I know that we can end this.